Hello there, Chris here from Becker's Models, and welcome to part 3 of my Airfix Sabre build. But you know that because you clicked on it and it's in the title below. So, what have I done to this poor little Airfix kit? Well, what has it done to me? This was intended as a slammer build or a mojo restorer, as a way of saying, hey, let's just throw something together and have a bit of fun. Now, my usual, I think I said that in the first video, part 1. You'll find all the parts there up on the screen or down below. I said, you know, the best sort of kit for that is Tamiya, because with Tamiya you don't need to worry about your foundational, I don't like to call them basic because they're not, they're actually a little bit more advanced than what you think. But what we call foundational modeling skills, you know, to the skills you need to pull out of the tool chest to fix a kit that's not quite right, that's got a few little foibles here and there, because it has to be understood that, you know, kits have come a long way in the last 50, 60 years. And stuff that comes out, like for example, I'm just looking at the new Tamiya F.4. Oh my god, below, that's an amazing kit. The engineering in that looks absolutely fantastic. Even though it's not 100% engineered for in-flight, it does look like it can be done that. But besides that, for the 99% of you who won't build it in flight, it actually looks like an amazing kit. Now, some old folks will say, oh, it's just a Lego kit. Well, actually, no, it's just the way that engineering has progressed and allowed us to create more and more complex models compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago. I won't go down that old chestnut, but as I said at the end of part 2, this is not a basic kit, but it alludes itself to be one, but it doesn't price itself to be one. It's actually got a lot of complications. Well, no, what am I trying to say? What I'm basically trying to say is you can't just slam this together, okay? You have to fix its faults. Now, I made a mistake with these panels because they give you these options to have open gun bays or closed ones, and as you can see, there's a step there, and I should have, you know, instead of just, oh, let's just cut the piece out and glue it in, it should be fine, because you know that's what you do with 95% of other kits out there. Used to be 90%, but Kitty Hawk's no longer there, haha. And she'll be right, but no. Every step of this kit you have to think, hang on, I don't think they've done that right. It looks nice on paper, for example. I'll just turn this over without the super glue touching my fingers, which is done on one spot already. See that little tab there? That single tab holds that whole tub intake assembly, cockpit assembly to the fuselage, with only very minor points to glue on the inside there. So, yeah, that's in a Tamiya kit, you could probably get away with that, but they would actually have another one on the other side, then two more up the front there, and it would literally go click, and you know it's aligned. So I had problems with the alignment at the front. That's not right, so I'm going to have to put some, that's what I'm going to show in a few minutes. I'm going to have to put some piece of sprue in there to push this whole lower assembly over to line it up. I should have put some tabs of sheet styrene underneath the fuselage halves, because I've got a nasty step here, that's why that's covered in super glue. And yeah, and also down below here, that's not too bad, but all the panel lines are misaligned, so that's why using a super glue again makes sense, because after that dries, you can run a scribing tool over that nice and quickly. What I'm trying to, and also I'm probably going to have to put a spreader in here. So a spreader is where you artificially spread the fuselage over, because as I showed, there are gaps with this wing. There's gaps on here, there's gaps at the front, there's gaps laterally through the wing root as well. So you've got to pull out all these sort of, some people call them basic. They call them basic because they've had to do them for every kit that's been made from the 1960s to the 1990s. But the last 30 years, you don't really have to do it. And this is where this kit falls. While it's an accurate kit and while it has the in-flight options, I'd go get the Academy kit. I wouldn't buy this one. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone. It's just not worth the time, money, and effort, in my opinion. So, stop watching and go do something else. No, keep watching. Let's see. I just got to wait for this super glue to go off. I've never used this stuff before. I just got it the other day. It's the MIG Ammo Black super glue from my good mate Eric at Manscale Models. Because I had been using a sort of a ghetto version of that. Where is it? Just over here, where I make my own black super glue using AK pigments and clear super glue, and I just shove it together in a little tray, and that's what I use. The great thing about that is once that goes off and you sand this back, you can see where the super glue has been, and there's an obvious black line, so you know that you've done the right amount of sanding, and it's quick. This should be going off. Shall I tempt fate and touch it? No, it's still a bit wet. So I've got these seams filled here on the top of the fuselage and underneath using the MIG black CA glue. Really good product. I find, however, if you're doing a little bit thicker than normal, it does take a while to dry, and it does say slow dry. It does give you a bit of time. So the seam underneath took 5-10 minutes to dry, whereas these ones on top took at least half an hour, which is a little bit more than what I'm used to with my pigments solution. So might be just be the additive they use in there just to make it slow drying, which is no problem at all. I just let it sit aside and did other stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of, I'll show you what I do to make this, to check the seams. So I've already done underneath, as you can see, and I'll just quickly paint this on camera. So all I'm doing is just using a little bit any Tamiya paint, and a little bit thicker than normal, a little bit of unicorn tear, some lacquer paint, and I'm just going over the seams there just to check it. It's ideal to make it a dark paint so you can see where it shows up nicely. So you can see here in front of the cowl, I've got some. I knew that would happen. I've got to square that up properly, but at least I think I've got a few little pinholes there I need to fill in. Whereas at the back here, I think we're pretty much done. So that step was eliminated by just building up a little bit of the CA glue and then just smoothing it over. I just need to rescribe in a couple of lines. If I flip this over, and at the back, that's all good and well. I sanded fairly aggressively either side of the panel lines. You can probably see that right there on that side there. So I can scribe in a proper straight line because they're all offset, they don't fit properly. So now that I think this one's done okay, I can get this nose on. So before I do the nose, I need to align that cowl. So let's get a piece of spare styrene stock and put that in there and see if I can push it over. So how are we going to fix this little problem at the nose here? This whole trunk here is not aligned properly. If I put the nose piece on, it's slightly out. Okay, I've been able to move it a little bit left and right, but it's still too biased to that way. So I knew that there's a reason for extra landing gear. You don't need it to hold up wheels, you need it to fix problems. So what I'm going to do is, this is just a strut, I think, from one of the landing gear. I'm just going to push it in the side there, and that should squeeze it over more to the center. So I'm just going to cut off this piece first. So I'm just trimming this down a little bit and shoving it in. So this is old school, basic, fundamental, whatever you want to bloody call it, skills to fix problems that kits have. Okay, if you're born before, if you're born after 2000, you probably have never seen these sort of problems that you have to solve. Whoop, and there it went, flying away. I might go big side in first, hey? So I'll just shove that in there. Okay, so that's shoved it a little bit way over. I might need a bigger piece. Oops, and it's just gone down. Alright, let's use the other end. And then if this doesn't work, I'll use proper dimensional square stock styrene that I got in my evergreen stash. Get in your bugger. I love doing these things on camera, always perfect. Do this off camera to practice and it works fine, and then you put the camera on, it doesn't work. So that looks a little bit better, but I need to take that knob off. We don't want knobs at the end. Haha. Okay, that looks a little bit better. So what I'll do is I'll just trim that piece off, and let's try some glue, and maybe that will do it. And this is likely to ping off into the atmosphere as I put it in there. I could use my fingers, but I have sausage fingers and that won't work. So I've got to use tweezers. Oh, come on, you bugger. I'm going to do this off camera because it never works when you do. Oh, here we go. Look, I found a different way to do it. Go around the other side. Ah, okay. How does that look? Let's put it on and let's see. Okay, we're doing a little bit better, but it needs to come up. See, it looks like it's gonna, so this needs to come up a little bit. So I'm gonna put something on the bottom as well. Alright, hold that thought, I will get some better plastic. So what I've done is I've used a little bit of this 4mm wide by 0.75 strip styrene and just cut off a little piece and put under that little shelf there. Little do I realise I had to read the instructions, just like someone's commented on my last video, just said maybe that's your problem, you're not reading the instructions correctly. And sure enough, there's a piece missing. So there's a clear piece that goes in here, that just slots in there. And originally when I had that piece in and I tried to push down, it just wouldn't push down. Because that and in fact this has got a bit of give as well. I'm going to have to clamp that, which I almost never do. I almost never have to bring out my big clamps. I usually just use the little ones. But anyway, so that looks like it's fairly well aligned. It looks like I can get that piece in. If I get the nose on, and the most important orientation is from the top because I want that to look the best. And it's looking okay. If I go this way, there's still a tiny little bit of a lip showing. Not by much. It's good enough. I think I can make that work. Hopefully I can get that all square, and I think I need to trim that piece that I've added there. So I'm going to do that off camera and just glue that all in and glue that part in. Time to move on to the last piece of construction. I've put the nose on there. I've done a little bit of sanding. The fit's not the best, and there's a little bit of a gap. Of course, here and there in the construction. Same with this piece here. Small little gap as well. The pieces fit so-so. The tail planes are on at the right angle, I think. Okay, so they've been left to set up and dry. So the last thing to do is the fuselage to wing fit. Now, if you remember in the other video, I showed that there was 2 gaps on each side, one here just at the wing root and one further forward. I'll just show you that now without doing any modification. I've fettled and sanded and played with and, you know, changed shape and sanded. I mean, it's all basic stuff, but yeah, if this was say a Tamiya, even an old 25-year-old Spitfire or Mustang kit, you cut the parts off the sprue, you glue it in, you forget about it. Yeah, so the fit down the bottom is not too bad. It's smooth, and yeah, I'll have to tape it down, of course, because it doesn't fit just right. It's not engineered right. But that gap still exists on there and in there, but also when we look down, there's a gap there and there. Now, I have tried the old trick. You cut off a piece of sprue off the spare parts and you trim it to length. So for example, one of these, yeah, this one, and I've tried to just slightly bulge the sides out. Actually, there's the other one. Okay, so you put it in there, and of course, as happens on camera, it won't work. I just did it 5 seconds ago. Okay, there we go. So you just spread it open a little bit, and that gives you a bit more width, and maybe that'll give you more, I don't know, give, but I got the exact same result. There was no difference whatsoever. I'm going to try squeezing it this time, see if it works. Okay, let's see, just squeeze it, make it a bit better to fill those gaps, or am I just going to have to go back to old-fashioned elbow grease, you know, that huge amount of time and effort that I've got left to do this. So if I squeeze it, does it push in? Let's have a look. I'm giving it a squeeze. Oh, maybe, but this comes out. That one sort of disappears. That one doesn't. See, the thing is, you can't remove material. You have to sort of fill in. So squeeze and you push it up a little bit, but the dihedral's starting to get a bit Italeri-ish, aka shit, Ileri. Yeah, it's not good enough. Not going to work. So roll out the barrels of Mr. Surfacer. That's all I'm going to have to do. I'm going to glue this together, wait for the glue to go off, and then I'll just run some layers of Mr. Surfacer in the wing roots and in the nose and in there and in there and in there and in there and there and there, probably there, oh, a little bit here. A little bit here. Well, where else have we got? That's not too bad on the wing. That's not too bad. Ailerons are okay. Yep. Let's just keep going. At least I'm almost there. I've just got to paint that pilot and we can put the canopy on and get moving forward. So let's keep going. Alright, we're at that stage where the fuselage and the wings are together. But I was able to squeeze a little bit more to close those gaps on the wing root. There's still a little bit in there left, and there's still a bit here on this side. So, but dimensionally, I think it all looks about right. yeah, I've got to spend a few minutes putting this down. So if you want to know what this is, you're not familiar, this is Gunze Mr. Surfacer. It comes in different grades. The lower the number, the thicker and goopier it is. This is a 1200, but actually it's closer to a 1000 because I do add some 1000 in there, and it's dried out quite a bit. So it's still, it's you know, it's not 1200 normally is actually almost a liquid, whereas this is a strong putty because it's dried out. Let me just tighten up here, and I'll show you how I apply this to the bits that just need that little bit of filler. So we might do this side first. So I'll start here. So all I want to do is just, yeah, that's quite thick actually. It's getting yeah, that's my dog Penny having a hissy fit there in the corner. I'm sorry, Penny, I am doing some modelling instead of playing with you, but that's okay. So I just want to apply that into the wing root, just to fill that gap. So this is if you hear it in a magazine, they say, oh, this kit fell together, I just had to apply just a few swipes of Mr. Surfacer. That's what they mean. They're just putting this sort of liquid putty into those areas. So I need to see if I can I might have to actually use a bit of styrene for this. That's a pretty big gap, but let's see how it goes. It'll need a few layers of this Mr. Surfacer. I think it's too far, and I'll just I had to sand this back a bit because it's misaligned. So I've had lots of comments. I've been reading your comments about, you know, is this the kit's fault? Is it Becca's fault? You know, well, a little from column A, a little from column B, who knows? I did do this as a slammer build, as I said at the start, as, you know, something just to chuck together and have a bit of fun, and it's turned out to be not as much fun as I had hoped. The funny thing is though, I might have changed my mind. I've changed my mind a couple of times now. I might actually do a natural metal finish, because why not? But I'm on two minds about that. Let me see if my mojo runs out. If it runs out, then yeah, I won't do it. I'll just do the basic scheme and chuck it on its stick and then leave it as is. Alright, I think that's about it. There might be a couple of spots I've missed, but I'll turn off the camera. We'll come back in about 5-10 minutes and I'll show you how I remove it. So the Mr. Surfacer has gone off slightly. It's only been 20 minutes or so since I've applied it. It's, when you run your finger over it, it's fairly dry to the touch. You're not bringing anything with you. So the way to get rid of it without removing any detail is acetone. Just any regular sort of stuff, and hopefully this doesn't destroy the Airfix plastic. Cotton bud, and all we want to do is I'll show you. Where will I show you first? I'll just do these little bits here. So I'm just very lightly dragging over, not doing too much, letting it dry off slightly. There it goes. Okay, and so you just got to use a little bit of patience and just smear it away until, and sometimes you take away all of it and you're like, oh okay, so you got to start again. So in those gaps there, it's not too bad. And again, just on the back here. Yep. Alright, that's good. So now I want to do, I'll show you how to do these wing roots. You don't need a lot on your cotton bud, but basically what you want to do is just drag it in the corner there like that, okay? And you get to a sweet spot where it'll start to liquefy again and come out. And I've got a pinhole there already, so I'm going to have to do this again. This is one of the problems with this this particular method, is sometimes it takes a couple of runs, but once it's done, it's done. So I'm not getting any bad reactions to the plastic. It shouldn't, because the acetone is fairly benign, and I just need some more cotton bud. So all I'm going to do is go around and remove all this excess Mr. Surfacer. It's really good for doing these sort of curved bits. So this is superior than using just a straight bog standard putty that you put on, and unfortunately to get it off, it dries so hard, you have to actually use a sanding stick, and it removes all the detail, whereas I'm preserving all the detail there. Rescribing. I need to rescribe a couple of panel lines on the Sabre before I call this quits. I'm actually decided I'm not going to paint the cockpit and the pilot in this part video, because the next video is going to be all painting, so why not just jumble them in together. So what I'll do is I'll scribe the panel lines and I'll show you how I've got the rod all fixed for in-flight display. So the tools that I use for doing curves and some, well, just for a bit of security, I don't like to freehand scribing. I'm not that good at that, and scribing is a bit of an art form. It's more of a craft than anything else. Is some Dymo tape, and for relatively flat surfaces like across here, there's going to be one here and one here. I'll just use a nice piece that I've cut off and just stick to that, and you can use that several times before the stickiness, the tackiness goes off. However, for the underside, where I've got to do a few, as this curvature starts to get nice and tight, what I do is I just cut off a thinner slice of the Dymo so you can bend it around a corner. Now some people use, you can use a steel rule for nice straight bits. You can give it a little bit of bend. If you're literally doing it on a flat piece, and I really like the trumpeter, upside down Miss Jane. I really like the trumpeter scribing tool for the initial scribing. Then I switch to the Tamiya one if I need to do some deeper or wider. And I've got some other scribing tools I haven't used yet actually. I should pull them out to have a go. Anyway, this has got a nice flat piece at the tip there, about 3mm long, and you can actually use that to rock over and just get into place and do a bit of freehand, but I prefer to do this with some control. So let's get to it, and my head's probably going to be obscured by the camera because I need to wear my my 3-power loop. Let's see if I can get this in line while I'm doing it. The secret to scribing is use almost no pressure for your initial pass. So I've lined these two up, and I'm just very lightly resting it against the Dymo tape, letting it slide, and just doing several very, very, very light passes. I don't know if I'm getting that in camera or not. Hopefully I am. Okay, so I've made a few light passes, and like I said, I'm using this flat piece to guide me all the way along. So it's not too bad. I might have made a scratch or two here, but that can be sorted out with a bit of Mr. Surfacer or some super glue. So I'm going to switch over and go to the sharp side, and I'm just using a little bit more pressure this time. And again, you're probably not in camera, so after a few scrapes, it's kind of okay. It should do. If I take the Dymo tape off, and it's not quite right. There we are. The Airfix panel lines are a bit wide. They're not as good as this trumpeter tool, so I might have to get the Tamiya one out. But I've got to match them, you see. You've got to match the same width, not just get the right. Now if you're going to do a natural metal finish, you've got to do this. You've got to apply it. I've seen lots of builds of this kit online. I was doing research saying, how bad have you got it, Becca? Maybe these other builders are having an easier time because they're better than you, and maybe they are, but a lot of them just leave the faults in. I don't like that. The kit has to be as near as possible to perfect as I can make it. That's just my want. I don't like leaving in obvious things like seam lines not filled and scribing bits not done. It just doesn't stick well with me. I think I've done that one okay-ish. So again, hopefully on camera here. Hopefully you're just not recording the top of my head. So I'm just going very light. This is the beauty of using your super glue for your filler, is it's nice and hard. Unlike putty, if you had to use too much putty, you run into trouble trying to rescribe. And normally when I do this, I'd be having some music blaring to calm me down, but I can't. I just, you to listen to me rabbit on. Now you will sometimes, I haven't done it yet, I probably will now. Your scribing tool goes a bit askew and runs off into the wilderness, and you have to fill things. It's a bit of a pain, but just, it comes with the territory. So the rescribing's been done. I made one little boo-boo there. You can probably see a scratch just there, and hopefully the final stage of rescribing, which is where I just lay down a very tiny amount of Tamiya extra thin to clean out the dust and the stuff that's in those panel lines, that will maybe get rid of that scratch. I'll have to just wait till primer. If worst case scenario, I'll just put a dab of Mr. Surfacer there. I've got these curved sections redone. Now remember, these panel lines were misaligned, either by my fault probably, or by the kit's fault, because they don't match up. But when I sanded this central seam away, I sanded quite a bit of the original seams there so I can match them up very quickly. And we'll just do the same to the top side here, and it's done. I've noticed there's just a few pin marks, some pinholes I need to fill with Mr. Surfacer, just here at the front of the nose. And I might just need a little bit more clean up on that, and I might wait till I get the canopy and that on. Major construction's finished, and this is where we're going to finish this video, because the next video is going to be the painting. So here's the stand. I've drilled a nice big hole in my little award base there, and so that's just friction fit in there. And we've got this rod to go on, and I should probably thin this end on, because it just sort of sits there by gravity like that. Okay, so I can pose that, you know, banking, or it's in a climb, but I could, with a bit of movement, I can actually change the angle of the base as well if we want to centralize it, so it's doing a nice sort of base like this. There you go. Alright, and as I said in my post, you can make any kit look good when it's in flight, except for maybe a P-47. I think they look a bit unbalanced in flight. Anyway, let's end it there. Hope you enjoyed that piece. Like I said, keep watching if you think you know, you want to see the finished product, and if you're interested in buying this kit, I still recommend don't. Okay, unless you definitely want a Canadair version. I would get the Academy kit and avoid the Larry kit in this scale. Okay, let's leave it there. I'll see you next time. Cheers.